Let's take our Bible, turn to the book of Hebrews. And interesting book of Hebrews. Let me ask you a question. The reason the book of Hebrews was written, well, let me rephrase. Let me go back and rephrase. Why did Paul, and I'm going to go ahead and say Paul because I really firmly and believe he wrote it. Why did Paul write the book of Hebrews? Why did he write the book of Hebrews? What was his objective? And what was the concern that he had? What was happening in the community that caused Paul to say, I'm going to write Hebrews? And so let's discuss that a minute so you know the why of it, all right? We've been talking a lot about it. Let's discuss the reason he wrote it a little bit. Well, that's part of it, yeah. But what was the root cause? What happened? You got cause and effect. A lot of times your Bible, especially your New Testament, the books were written as a result of something. In other words, either a question was asked, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, or something was happening in the time period, Colossians, Gnosticism, false doctrine propped up, so Paul wrote Colossians. So what was going on at that time with the people that the writer of Paul was writing to, which is typically Jews, correct? All right. What was going on with that people that caused Paul to say, okay, I'm going to write down Hebrews? Yeah. They
were breaking away from the main church and started separate.
You're on the right track. You're on the right track. It's not because they were breaking away from Judaism. Are you saying because they're breaking away from Judaism and going to Christianity?
No, I mean, I was just reading the background. It said that.
Oh, okay.
It was speculated that the book was written for a breakaway group such as the house church that had been separated from the main church.
No, no, not altogether. The problem with it is, remember, who's his audience? Let's go back and look at it, pick one thing. The Jews was his audience, okay? And the whole book Paul is going back to the Old Testament, right? He's mentioning and writing down the precepts of the Old Testament. And then he is writing how Jesus fulfilled all of the Old Testament, right?
Superior.
Yeah, and superior too, correct. All right? Now, so as a result, a lot of Jews, when early on in the early church, were saved, right? A lot of Jews were saved. In other words, came to Christ and came into Christianity, which was a new thing. All right? They didn't understand it all, but it was a new thing. Then the Judaizers were going around causing problems because wherever the Christians were going, the Judaizers would go and say, why did you do this? And ask questions. And as a result of their questions and as a result of them going around to these people that had just accepted Christ, what was happening? What happened as a result of that?
They were talking about.
Huh?
They were
mixing the law and grace.
Circumcision.
And was causing the Jews that had denounced Judaism to go and would go to be a Christian to go back to Judaism. Okay, so there was a change. These people would go back, and Paul said, "I don't know why you want to go back." And that's the reason he showed the superiority of Christ over the Old Testament. That's the reason he was doing all of that. Is because he said, you don't want to go back to what you had because what you had is this. And this is what you have in Christ, which is far better, which is greater, which is superior, which is everlasting instead of temporal. You know, all of those words that we looked at as we went through the book, okay? So that's the reason that you had people going back into Judaism is because of the fact is these Judaizers would come around and look at these people that just accepted Christ. Well, you shouldn't have done that. Put a guilt trip on them. Your mama, your daddy, your granddaddy were Jews, and you know you're going against our fathers that you were raised. Judaism is steeped in tradition. Steeped in tradition. That's why it's so hard to ever get a Jew. It's not because of what they strongly believe. It has nothing to do with what they strongly believe. I told you, they go to synagogue, they don't have a clue what they're doing. They don't know. The only thing they know is my mom and daddy raised me this way, and my mom and daddy were devout, and I'm honoring my mom and my daddy, my grandmama, and all my relatives. That's what they know. Our forefathers, you know, it's steeped in tradition. And so when the gospel, when Jesus came and the gospel was presented, a lot of Jews believed, and boy, they were getting saved, and they were causing a problem. I mean, you know, it's just like the Methodist Church today when people say, I'm going to come out and take a stand. Enough come out and take a stand, then the other side's got to make a move too to keep the stand from taking place because they're losing money. So the Judaizers are saying, uh-oh, wait a minute, our membership is dwindling because they're leaving. We got to do something. So they go in there and start telling them you need to come back. Paul's saying, why you go back? Why are you going back? And so he's telling us, he's showing that Christ is superior to everything. He's superior to the law. He's superior to the angels. He's superior to the priesthood. He's superior to Moses. He's superior to Abraham. He's superior to everything. And so so apostasy. That's what we just got through talking about. Is apostasy, and we talked about that last week a little bit, and I won't rehash that again, but I do want to go into, get into chapter 13 a little bit where it says, let brotherly love continue. So now he's more into the practical part of the book, even though it's right at the end. Let me sum up everything that I've done. He says, let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. You know, I often wonder now. Let me ask a question here this morning. This is a loaded question. I'm gonna go ahead and ask it. Okay, all right. But how many of you in here really believe that you and I have, number one, might one day, number two, entertain an angel unaware? All right, got one hand up over here. Okay, Miss Terry got one right here. All right, Miss Deborah right here. Anybody else? In other words, entertaining an angel unaware. You don't know it's an angel. It's just there. Brother Rick right there. Okay, he must be on security duty back there. And Brother Mike right there.
Yeah, I can have to think about it.
All right. Okay, Brother David, you're thinking about it. Okay, that's good. And well, I want you to think about it. I put forth that out there for you to think about it. Okay? So now let me answer the question for me. If somebody would ask me that question, preacher, do you believe that you have, number one, number two, may and possibly will ever entertain an angel unaware? Do you believe that? Yes. Both hands go up. Because let me tell you something, the spiritual world is very real. All right? It's very real. And the Bible tells us that we can entertain angels unawares. We don't know. In other words, it might be a person, and this is where Christianity really rubber meets the road. It could be a homeless person on the street. It could be somebody in a store. It could be somebody at a restaurant. It could be somebody at a doctor's office. It could be somebody that you're sitting in your house. I'm going to tell this story because many of you hadn't heard this story. It could be like this. I was sitting in the house right over here. We never really had a lot of traffic of people. You'd be amazed. But you would think, pastor living right next door to the church on the main road, we would have people just all the time just bombarding us. I need food, I need money, I need this, I need that, I need this. Well, I was sitting there, and many of y'all know when we lived there, we left the carport door open most of the time. The glass door, the screen door was closed, of course, but the main door inside was open. And a lot of people that knew us and come over a lot from the church, they just stick their head in and holler because, you know, we might not hear the doorbell. So, and they learned that. Miss Shelby, you did that. And then, you know, that's the way we did it, okay? And, well, one evening, I was sitting there, and when my recliner was in the other room, and I couldn't see the door. I was sort of over this corner, and the door was over here behind a wall. I couldn't see it. So I'm sitting there, and it was Hannah. She was a little thing, okay? So that just takes it back a while. So I'm sitting in the recliner, and I don't know where Tina was. I think she was somewhere else in the house, and I don't think she was in the living room. I can't remember what her location was. But anyway, she's the one that alerted me to this fact, okay? I did not hear anything. And what happened was a woman walked into the house, just opened the door, walked in, and just stood there. Sure did. I didn't have a clue she was there. Okay? So Tina told me, she says, we got a woman standing in there at the door. I said, oh, at the door? No, in the house, you know. And so I said, oh, okay. So I get up, I go in there, and I'm looking, I said, can I help you? She sort of just looks at me with this glass eye thing. I mean, just, she don't have a clue where she is, who she is, what she is, where she's going. I see a car out in the driveway, so she drove there. The car door was open. There was lights. I could see a bunch of stuff in the back seat. And so I said, what's your name? She didn't know. So I said, I looked at Tina. I said, I don't know what to do. You know, what do you do with this thing? First thing you do, get out of here. You know, get out of here. Get out. And then Hannah come running out of the room, of course, want to see what was going on. And of course, now I'm here. This woman is here, and my little girl's over there. And I don't like that. I don't like that situation at all. So I changed positions. I go in front of her, and I get between this woman and Hannah. And then I started asking her questions, and she wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't tell me anything. So she came in. I got her in there, set her on a couch. I said, you want some water? Yeah, I'll take some water. So we got her some water. And I'm trying to get out of this thing. I said, here, watch her. Let me go out and look at the car. Car was running. The door was open, went out there, and it scared me to death because I looked in the back. It was like somebody had been traveling or moving or something. There was a baby car seat back there with a bottle in the little holder right there and no baby. I said, oh, man, we already done something to the baby. I don't know where the baby is. I mean, you know, the car is running. And then I get back in the house. She says, I got to go. So I can't keep her there. I tried to keep her there, but she wouldn't stay. So she did all she was going to do. She got in the car. She backed out, and she left. So I was putting my shoes on. I said, call the police. Give them my cell phone number. I said, I'm going to follow her. So she got in the car, left. I got in my car, and I was following her. I followed her down there. She come out, went down that way. She was going back that way. Then she turned down an M-finger subdivision. And she, right in that first road right there, went on down beside what's it, Superfoods guy's house, Lawrence's house. Went down that way and went all the way down to the bottom where you go around that way, go back to Friendship, or you go that way to nowhere. So she went that way to nowhere. And I said, this woman don't have a clue. So by that time, the police done called me on my cell. Where are you? I told them where I was. And I said, she's in this subdivision. She's lost. I pulled over. She pulled over. I went up to her. I said, you okay? I just don't know where I am. I said, well, that's obvious to myself. And so then officer got there. Officer got there, looked at her and all that good stuff, said, well, okay, I'm going to turn this over to y'all. Y'all handle this thing, and I'm just going to stick around. So took her to the police department and set her in there, questioned her. They couldn't get anything out of her. Finally, how did it work? Aaliyah, the state trooper, put out an all-points bulletin on this woman. And her husband took the baby and was taking it to the bathroom to change the diaper. While he took the baby to the bathroom to change the diaper, she left. That explained no baby in the car seat. So I said, baby's all right, good. But Daddy and the baby are at the shoulder, Love's, or not Love's, but truck stop right there at shoulder, whatever it was then. And so either one or two things got to happen. Either Taliesin got to go pick her up, pick him up, bring her there, or the state trooper's going to have to bring him and her, the baby, to the police station, or something's going to happen. Well, at that time, I was chaplain for DPS. So I said, look, just let me go on the clock, and I'll go, I'll go active, and I'll go pick her up. So I called the post in Montgomery, told them, Chaplain Doyley, I'm going active, and I said, I'm going to go pick this man up. Okay, so I went to Shorter, picked him up, brought him to the police station, and he thanked me. He was scared. You could tell he'd been crying. The baby was upset, and he was telling me, I thank you. And, she's on medication that's not agreeing with her, and something like that. But anyway, I said, well, let's just get back to this. So we got back to the police station. I stayed there a little while with him. He got my information, and so gave it to him. Police made their report. They left. About a month later, I got a letter from this man that I picked up in Shorter. And he told me, he says, I really appreciate you taking care of my wife. She says she got off, we were on a trip, she got off on medication, and she was really having some problems. And he says, I can just imagine she'd have walked in the wrong house. But God led her to you. And you stayed with her, and you took care of her, and you come got me, and I really appreciate that. And he thanked me. Now, I haven't heard any more from that couple again. I don't know what happened to that lady or that man. I don't know how to clue but I often wonder, was that an angel that I entertained that I didn't know? Could have been. God could have been saying, okay, I'm going to put this out there. How's this preacher going to handle this? Does God do that? Yeah, you entertain angels unawares. You just don't have a clue who they are. That's the reason the Bible tells us when he's listen to what the writer of Hebrews is saying here very carefully. Remember them that are in bond. I'm sorry, back to verse 1. He says, let brotherly love continue. In verse 2, yes. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Isn't that what we just talked about, right? Okay, verse 3, remember them that are in bonds as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity as being yourselves also in the body. And then he says, marriage is honorable to all, bed undefiled, whoremongers, adulterers, God will judge. Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have. For he hath said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. We talked about that a lot last week. So that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. Remember them which have the rule over you. You see, do you see a trend here? You say, okay, take care of strangers, take care of, you may be entertaining angels unaware, take care of your family, take care of those that have the rule over you. He's naming different sections of people, if you'll see what's happening here. Love conceived salvation's plan. All of us will agree with that, right? Love conceived salvation's plan in eternity past. Love brought forth the Son of God from heaven to die for us sinners. Y'all agree with that, right? For God commendeth his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Romans chapter 5, verse 8, right? So we see that. This right here is like a cover letter. Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is like a cover letter to the whole epistle of Hebrews. And this is Christian compassion. Christian compassion. We ought to have compassion. Now, I understand. It's hard to have compassion in a world where you have a lot of nutcases out there that are just manipulating people and getting something for nothing. There's a lot. But let me tell you something. We cannot allow those people who are manipulating Christianity, manipulating everything else to get what they want, to stop us from showing Christian compassion. We can't. You need to discern it as good as you can, pray over it, and vet it as much as you can, but don't let the hard cases, ruin Christian compassion. And I believe that's what the writer is saying here. I really do. But number one, we show it to the saints. We show it to the saints. We show it, number two, to strangers in verse 3. To Also to be shown to sufferers in verse 3. Remember them that are in bonds, as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity. Those that are in bonds. You know, what did Paul tell us in the book of Galatians? Do good unto all men, but then a comma, especially those of the household of faith. Right? In other words, you do good to everybody, but especially those in the church. If they're saved and they're blood bought, you do good, especially those. So, Christian compassion should be shown, number 1, to the saints, number 2, to the strangers, number 3, to the sufferers, and then you have Christian chastity, you have Christian contentment, that's verse 4. Verse 5, you have Christian contentment. In other words, let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have, for he hath said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. In other words, having God in our lives and being blessed of God like we have been and are should be content for us, and it shouldn't be in the things that we have, but in the person that we have, and that's Jesus Christ. Amen? So we have Christian chastity, and we have Christian contentment, okay? And then you have, look at verse 6, and then he says, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do to me. I don't think Christians ought to be somebody that's run over. I think there's a time and place for everything, and God will restrain you when you need to be restrained, and trust me, I know that firsthand accounts. And but we ought to show Christian courage. Christians ought not be some pansies out there that the world thinks they can just run all over. That we ought to be courage in what we do. In other words, have the courage of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, you may end up in a fiery furnace, but look, just don't be scared when you're in there. Amen? Don't be scared when you're in there. You might end up in a lion's den, but don't worry about it. God's going to take care of it. Don't show the same fear that the world shows when they get in those situations. And that's what the writer's talking about. I'll end right there, and we'll close out the chapter next week, okay? And we'll move on. Hope y'all like my illustration. That really happened. I was alive and thing. Yes, ma'am.
That helps you, that can still be, would that fall under a different category, someone that you felt was an angel?
That's not the same thing as entertaining an angel. No. That'd be a different thing. That'd be something different. Yeah. I think we probably have been helped and not known it by angels, but then we've helped others and we entertain angels.